Good morning once again. We will probably begin by apologizing for starting late. We are starting 30 minutes later than scheduled. We apologize for this. My name is Demola, and I work mostly with the African Union Commission, and I'll be taking us through the program for today. I'm probably very lucky because I get to introduce myself to everyone. No one else gets that opportunity. We will begin with the official opening of this ceremony. And we might have seen from our program that Her Excellency Professor Sarah Ayang Agbo, the Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology, is supposed to deliver the welcome address, but unfortunately she's unable to be here. She's ably represented by Mr. Nicholas Ouma, Senior Youth Advisor with the African Union Commission. Next to him is Madam Saida Onesi, Secretary in charge of Technical Training and Private Initiative. And we have His Excellency Mr. Fawzi Abderrahman, the Minister for Vocational Training and Employment of Tunisia. His Excellency Mr. Buti Manamela, Deputy Minister for Higher Education and Training of the Republic of South Africa. And His Excellency Mr. Sabi Kalfala, Tunisian Ambassador in Ethiopia and Permanent Representative to the African Union. Thank you very much for coming to this event. Perhaps we could start with a very broad, very succinct understanding of why we are here. We all know the demographic realities on the continent. We know that the continent is youthful. We know that the continent is growing at a rapid rate. We also all know that we need to make strategic investments to turn this demography into a dividend. We're not going to speak about that because all of us in this room know that. We're also aware of the rising functionalities of the digital world, of technology, of innovation, and how this can help spur productivity and production on the continent. So the question therefore for us is, how do we bring this together? How can we use technology to increase productivity on the continent, to take advantage of new models of working and new models of skilling? A couple of questions then comes forth. One perhaps is what exists today, and we hope that we have the right mix of people in the room to tell us about what exists today in terms of digital skills. How can we then leverage what exists today for transformation? How can we make jobs more productive? How can we make jobs more attractive and rewarding? And what sort of support structures are needed? We believe we have the right mix of people in the room. We have people from policy, senior policymakers. We have senior government officials. We have civil society. We have development partners. And we have young people in the room because we cannot do things for young people without young people being present. Without saying much, I would like to welcome Mr. Nicholas Ouma to, on behalf of the African Union Commission, deliver the welcome address.
Your Excellency, Mr. Fawzi Abderrahman, Minister of Vocational Training and Employment of Tunisia, Madam Saida Onesi, Secretary of State, TVET, Your Excellency, Mr. Abdulkader Tijani Idrissa, Minister for Professional and Technical Education of Niger, Your Excellency, Mr. Adum Naku Gwet, Minister of Vocational Training for Chad, Your Excellency Mr. Gaston Sema Bongla, Minister of Primary, Secondary and Professional Education of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Your Excellency Dr. Ahmed El Geushi, Deputy Minister of Education for TVET, Egypt, Your Excellency Mr. Abdel Hafiz Abdel Rahim, State Minister in charge of Youth, Ministry of Education of Sudan, and to join us, Mr. Kevit Desai, Principal Secretary, Ministry of Education of Kenya. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you warm greetings from the African Union Commission. Special greetings and best wishes from Professor Sarah Anyang Agbo, the Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology. Her Excellency, the Commissioner, was to be here today for this august forum, but unfortunately, another urgent commission assignment has made it impossible for her to be here this morning. She sends her most sincere apologies and prays for a very successful forum. I will now read the speech of the Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology, Her Excellency Professor Sarah Anyang Agbo. And I read, on behalf of the African Union Commission Chairperson, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, and on my own behalf, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the African Forum on Youth Skills and Enterprise in the Digital Age. Allow me to start by expressing profound gratitude to the government and the people of the Republic of Tunisia for hosting this important conference on digital skills and enterprise for youth. A warm welcome to you all gathered here today to discuss and share experiences towards improving skills for young people in Africa. Digital skills are at the heart of the skills revolution agenda for Africa and a trajectory towards a digital economy as envisaged in Africa's development blueprint, Agenda 2063. The agenda calls for speeding up actions to catalyze education and skills revolution and actively promote science, technology, and innovation research with the ultimate aim of building knowledge, human resources, capabilities, and skills for the future. It is not lost to us here that digital skills are now recognized as basic skills along with literacy and numeracy. This is apart from being the bedrock of an effective digital society with the potential of transforming employment landscape across all facets of the economy, including financial services, agriculture, health, entertainment, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, whereas many young people are often considered digital savvy and use digital products, including the internet, daily, the reality is that possession of job-relevant digital skills is still a far cry away. Many young people do not have the requisite skills needed to convert this interest into an actual job. Jobs requiring advanced ICT skills such as coding, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics, cybersecurity, among others, still face a critical shortage of skilled professionals to fill them up. This digital skills gap has a huge impact on the labor market. As key players and stakeholders, we should ensure that Africa's youth have the relevant digital skills as they enter the job market. For Africa to advance in the digital space, concerted efforts should be made for children to learn and have skills in ICT, skills such as programming, at an early age, as this helps kids to gain advantages in thinking, processing, and communicating. Our education and training systems should therefore empower learners from a very early age so that they advance in their education and training and are able to join the cutting-edge community of digital thinkers and eventually become the bedrock of innovation and jobs for the future. Most jobs in careers such as medicine, engineering, entertainment, particularly the film industry, education, and many more require an increasing degree of digital skills. It is also critical that we enhance collaboration with industry and identify where skill gaps exist for all young people, and put in place mechanisms to enhance reskilling of those out of school and are already in the labor market. It is encouraging to note that companies such as Cisco Systems, who are represented here today, are already deeply involved in bolstering the talent pipeline and enabling widespread emergence of digital ecosystems among the youth across Africa. It is imperative that technological companies enhance their partnership with training institutions to create relevant, high-quality curricula that will provide the much-needed digital skills that industry needs. I am pleased that among the facets of collaboration was the launch of the TVET cluster yesterday. Digital developments are changing the structure and nature of employment today. We need not lament about the potential loss of jobs with technological advancements, because while some jobs are being replaced thanks to digital technologies, new ones are also being created by it. Africa's youthful workforce needs the skills to match and keep up with these changes. The growth potential of the digital economy presents an opportunity for tackling the youth employment challenge with a strong focus on fostering youth-led digital entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, the African Union Commission has developed key strategic frameworks to guide member states towards digital skills revolution. In Africa, these include the Continental TVET Strategy to foster youth employment, the Continental Strategy for Africa, and the Science, Technology, and Innovation Strategy for Africa. These three instruments portray a renewed commitment in the transformation of Africa into a knowledge-based and innovation-led society underpinned by a robust digital skills development ecosystem. I am pleased to note that in the implementation framework of Continental Education Strategy for Africa, we have a coalition of partners in the ICT in Education cluster under the coordination of Global eSchools and Communities Initiative, who have also been very instrumental in coordinating this conference. There is need to enhance provision of a more flexible education system for students through multifaceted formats in open, distance, and e-learning. This will provide a viable opportunity for those seeking higher education and continuing learning to be able to enroll and undertake courses, for instance, in the flagship projects under Agenda 2063, the Pan-African University, Virtual and e-University. In conclusion, let me reiterate that digital skills should drive change and be the positive force for social inclusion. As we think about better harnessing digital tools to enhance education, innovation, and youth employment, we have to make sure that we leave no one behind. Digital inclusion in all its dimensions is something that we also need to consciously work on, plan for, and really invest in. As we engage in the next 2 days, let us remember that digital skills are the starting point to making Africa become competitive, grow, and prosper. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your commitment in this endeavor and wish you all a successful and productive conference. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Omar, for delivering the welcome address on behalf of Her Excellency the Commissioner. We welcome the good wishes of the Commissioner and are mindful of the key guidance that you have provided in your welcome remarks. May I invite Mr. Buti Manemela, the Deputy Minister for Higher Education and Training of the Republic of South Africa, to give his address.
Thank you very much, Program Director. His Excellency, Mr. Fawzi Abderrahman, Minister of Vocational Training and Employment of Tunisia, Ministers and Deputy Ministers from Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Kenya, Niger, and Sudan, Ambassador Sabi Kalfala, Ambassador of the Republic of Tunisia to the African Union, Professor Sarah Anyang Akbo, Commissioner, Human Resources, Science and Technology, African Union Commission, Mr. Shem Okore Boda of ADEA ambassadors and member states, distinguished guests, international and local delegates, Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, bonjour, Sabaleri, bon dia, salam. It gives me a great pleasure to address you today at the start of this important Africa Forum on Youth Skills and Enterprise in the Digital Age. It is significant that we hold this important forum in Tunisia, our member state that has just been honored as the most innovative economy in Africa and overall 43rd in the world according to the 2018 Bloomberg Innovation Index. I want to congratulate the government of Tunisia on this achievement. Africa is moving rapidly into the world of innovation, into the world innovation scene. Africa is no more the place for handouts, but a continent that is taking its rightful place in the global market. We're well aware that although our continent's economies are expanding and creating substantial wealth over the last 2 decades, Africa is also the fastest growth in the youth population in the world. This youth population growth places significant emphasis on the continent's approach to skills development and youth employment. South Africa has much to learn and to contribute to the social and economic development of our continent, and in particular to the Agenda 2063. In our country, we see technical and vocational education and training as critical to the advancement of skills development, innovation, and youth employment. We are firstly here to learn from our brothers and sisters in Africa, but we're also here to share what we are doing. Allow me to highlight a few innovative developments. Firstly, we're focusing on skills development and have declared the Decade of the Artisan, which is 2014 to 2024, where we encourage and promote youth development in the trades, including engineering, services, and business studies. In the last financial year, our Institute for National Development of Learnerships, Employment Skills and Labor Assessment in Ndlela qualified 21,188 new artisans. In this financial year, a further 22,188 new artisans will qualify. In order to give skills development its rightful place in social value, we're focusing on career advice and guidance through our KETA career development services. Through this service, we provide career development services for all through a helpline, radio programs, training and support, to name but a few. We also have a free online portal called the National Career Advice Portal that introduces youth to all 1,437 registered occupations in our country. In collaboration with industry, we've introduced new innovative ways for curriculum and qualifications called the National Occupational Qualifications, where we emphasize holistic and integrated development that includes theory, practice, and work experience. This is closely linked to projects such as Centers of Specialization, where we identified 26 colleges in 13 priority trades, and in collaboration with industry, build infrastructure and capacity in these colleges to deliver high innovative and technologically advanced teaching and learning. This is aligned to the introduction of a dual system in collaboration with GIZ and other industry partners. Lastly, we have a huge drive towards lecture, facilitated mentor development and training, as we see this as central to the development of our technical and vocational education and training sector. In today's learning environment, we cannot teach and learn without technology. In 2004, we devised a policy on e-learning that have 6 strategic objectives, including infrastructure development, content development and sharing, teacher development, technical and pedagogical support, research, and community involvement. We've initiated a connectivity initiative where we're connecting all TVET college campuses to uncapped broadband connectivity for administration, teaching, learning, and assessment. This will be integrated into e-administration, e-learning, and lecture development across the country. We're further initiating a national open learning system where everyone will have free access to high-quality, self-directed learning materials and opportunities to obtain recognized qualifications. We are progressively sourcing and developing interactive learning materials and open textbooks in all 13 trades mentioned above. I hope that this initiative will become an Africa-wide asset for quality TVET teaching and learning materials. We're giving open learning its rightful place in South Africa and prioritize the application of information and communications technology in addressing issues of access, equity, redress, and equality through open learning. We're living in a time where our youth are exposed to more innovation, new high-level skills and technology advancement than ever before. It is unfortunately the same world where there are not enough places in post-school education and training to absorb all the prospective students, and where students exiting the system are not assured of finding a place of work. And this is a trend throughout the whole continent. I hope that in this forum we will be able to find some answers to the question, are we preparing young people for the world that they're living in and the future that we do not know? We need to address these challenges urgently, and I hope that this forum will provide a much-needed injection of creativity to help governments and development partners in education and training to address these critical questions. We have to share common strategies, we have to share appropriate models and innovative approaches to teaching, learning, and skills development. I wish that we have a successful forum and hope that we're able to come forward with constructive and implementable ideas that will help ensure we keep our continent moving forward and moving rapidly. And I hope that we all have fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Perhaps I should mention that one of the objectives of this forum is to share knowledge around what works. And we are very grateful that the Honorable Minister has shared the experience of the Republic of South Africa on this. I'll probably emphasize one question that came out very clearly. Are we preparing our young people enough for the jobs that will emerge in the future? Are we? Thank you very much to the government of Tunisia for hosting us. I would like to invite, therefore, the minister to officially open the event.
Bonjour. Sabah al-Khir, good morning. Excellences, Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs de délégation, Mesdames et Messieurs les représentants des institutions internationales, Mesdames et Messieurs les participants, honorables invités. C'est tout d'abord pour moi, en mon nom personnel, au nom de notre ministère et au nom de la Tunisie, un agréable et un grand honneur et un grand plaisir de vous accueillir et vous souhaiter la bienvenue parmi nous à cette cérémonie d'ouverture des travaux sur le forum sur les compétences des jeunes et les entreprises à l'ère numérique. je voudrais particulièrement exprimer mes chaleureux mots de bienvenue dans notre pays à tous nos collègues et hôtes de la Tunisie qui sont venus pour prendre part aux échanges qui auront lieu à Tunis sur une question essentielle de notre temps, la problématique du développement des compétences des jeunes africains à l'ère du numérique. Je voudrais également vous exprimer toute la joie et la satisfaction de vous avoir si nombreux à cet événement. Encore merci d'être venus, encore merci de participer à ce séminaire et encore merci d'être venus. Permettez-moi aussi de saisir cette occasion pour remercier tous les partenaires et organismes qui ont participé, nationaux et internationaux, qui ont participé à l'organisation de cet event et de ce forum, et j'espère que les résultats de ce forum marqueront un virage dans la collaboration africaine en matière de jeunes à l'ère du numérique. Mesdames et messieurs, la Tunisie a toujours misé sur les richesses humaines et elle a investi dans le domaine de la formation, de l'éducation et de la formation professionnelle et le développement des compétences depuis un certain temps. Le dispositif national tunisien de la formation professionnelle a capitalisé durant ces dernières années des acquis qu'il mériterait d'être renforcés et partagés avec nos amis africains. Il est important de noter à ce titre que la richesse de ce dispositif témoigne entre autres d'une véritable réflexion stratégique qui a été faite au bon moment pour essayer de préparer la Tunisie aux challenges futurs. Conscient des nouveaux défis économiques et sociaux qu'affronte notre pays, le ministère de la Formation professionnelle et de l'Emploi s'est engagé à mettre en œuvre un grand chantier de réforme de son dispositif national de la formation professionnelle pour répondre au mieux aux besoins des individus, des entreprises, des régions et de la société. Et j'aimerais vous dire ici que être ministre de l'Emploi dans un pays aujourd'hui comme la Tunisie est un challenge extrêmement important s'il n'était pas allié à la formation professionnelle. Heureusement que le ministre de l'Emploi regroupe la formation professionnelle parce que pour nous, la formation professionnelle est une réponse immédiate au problème du chômage. Ce forum qui vise à soutenir le développement des compétences pratiques en mettant l'accent sur les qualifications entrepreneuriales professionnelles en étroite collaboration avec les entreprises africaines et internationales rime parfaitement avec la stratégie du ministère de la Formation professionnelle et de l'Emploi dans le développement des ressources humaines, notamment dans le domaine digital. Et s'il y a un thème aujourd'hui qui me tienne particulièrement à cœur et qui devrait nous interpeller tous, c'est exactement ce nouveau monde dans lequel on vit. J'aimerais partager avec vous une réflexion qui est extrêmement importante et qui peut-être est le thème central de ce forum. Le monde aujourd'hui est en train de bouger. Ce monde est traversé ça fait quelque temps, par des mouvements de fond qui sont en train de dessiner un nouveau monde qui émerge. Et nous vivons une période de l'histoire qui est très particulière, qui est celle de la conjonction de certaines technologies. Certaines technologies aujourd'hui, une conjonction de certaines technologies qu'on peut citer comme la biologie, les sciences cognitives, l'informatique, les nanotechnologies, cette conjonction de technologies est en train de façonner un nouveau monde. Et ce nouveau monde, on est en train d'en voir les prémices. Les prémices, et c'est en train de bouleverser tout. Certains pays déclarent aujourd'hui qu'ils n'auront plus de monnaie scripturale, fiduciaire, d'ici 3 ans. C'est un changement, c'est un bouleversement. Imaginez l'impact d'une société no cash dans nos pays, dans nos économies. La révolution industrielle est en train de toucher tous les secteurs. On parle de l'industrie 4.0, on parle de l'avènement de nouvelles techniques, on parle d'une usine nouvelle, de commerce nouveau, d'échanges nouveaux. On parle d'une usine et qui va sacrifier cette production de masse au profit d'une production personnalisée. Et tout ceci doit se faire avec un impact extrêmement fort en termes de background technologique, en termes d'informatique, en termes de solutions, ce qu'on appelle des big data, etc. Nous sommes en pleine révolution industrielle et technologique. Et la question que nous devons nous poser tous ensemble, quelle est la place de l'Afrique dans cette révolution industrielle et technologique? Nous pensons pour notre part que ce qui fait notre force, notre jeunesse, n'est pas une malédiction, c'est une opportunité pour nous tous. C'est ce qui fait notre force. Ce continent est jeune, nos pays sont jeunes. Et donc la jeunesse, qui est la force de nos pays, qui est la force de notre continent, c'est ça l'opportunité sur laquelle dont nous devons tenir compte pour essayer de prendre part à ce nouveau monde qui se prépare. Et nous avons une place à prendre dans ce nouveau monde. Ce n'est pas illusoire de penser que l'Afrique peut prétendre à jouer un rôle extrêmement important dans ce nouveau monde qui s'avène. Donc votre séminaire, messieurs, dames, il vient à point nommé aujourd'hui dans cette période également de l'histoire de ce continent et de l'histoire du monde tel que nous le vivons pour essayer d'infléchir peut-être une tendance extrêmement forte et essayer de mettre toutes nos forces dans ce sens. Ce forum est particulièrement intéressant également pour sa vocation éducative et socio-économique. Le partage des expériences dans ce domaine et de la nouvelle technologie et de bonnes pratiques entre les pays africains est d'une importance capitale. Et c'est exactement cette synergie que nous devons créer entre nous pour essayer de comprendre tout d'abord, d'avoir la même compréhension du monde dans lequel on vit, et deuxièmement, de chercher et d'étudier et de discuter et de définir notre place dans ce nouveau monde. Mesdames et messieurs, afin de concrétiser ce rêve de voir notre cher continent parmi ceux qui détiennent les outils de développement technologique, il nous fallait avoir la volonté de promouvoir notre potentiel humain et l'aider à s'approprier les compétences adéquates pour entrer dans le monde du travail avec toute confiance et enthousiasme. Sauf que, également là-dessus, on a un chemin à parcourir, nos systèmes devraient être revus. Imaginez le nombre de ressources que l'Afrique détient dans ce nouveau monde au niveau de tous ces cercles qui sont au définir de ce nouveau monde. Nous avons des ressources africaines partout. Elles sont partout. Elles ne sont pas uniquement en Afrique. Elles sont également au centre de ces bouleversements technologiques qui sont en train de faire. À chaque fois, on croise ces groupes de travail qui sont en train de travailler sur ce nouveau monde. On voit des Africains avec eux et à l'intérieur et qui sont extrêmement actifs. Donc, pour nous, c'est extrêmement important de fédérer toutes ces ressources et de fédérer toutes ces énergies pour que ce soit ce continent qui en bénéficie le plus. Et je pense que ce continent peut prendre sa place, peut prétendre à prendre sa place dans le nouveau monde. La population de l'Afrique avoisine les 1,22 milliard d'êtres humains en 2016, 16,4% de la population mondiale. Un quart de l'humanité vivra en Afrique en 2050, en majorité des jeunes de moins de 25 ans. Un tiers des réserves mondiales des ressources naturelles sont en Afrique. 25 pays africains ont connu une croissance de 6 à 13% en 2015. Par ailleurs, ce continent apporte toutes les convoitises du monde et toutes les stratégies du monde moderne aujourd'hui parlent de ce continent comme étant le continent du futur. Et je n'oublierai pas de citer que 18 prix Nobel ont été octroyés à des Africains. Dans ce cadre, et pour garantir au maximum une marche commune de ce continent, je vous propose de discuter l'idée de création d'une institution de veille technologique et d'innovation en relation justement avec cette problématique de l'éducation, de la formation digitale, et de nouvelles technologies et de la présence de l'Afrique dans ce nouveau monde. En effet, une telle institution qui peut être le lien, le lieu de rencontre de toutes ces énergies et une vraie plateforme du développement de l'Afrique aujourd'hui, mais surtout celle de demain. Mesdames et messieurs, à tous ceux qui vont veiller à la réalisation des objectifs de ce forum, je vous souhaite la réussite dans vos travaux et permettez-moi à la fin de remercier tous ceux qui ont contribué à l'organisation de cet événement encore une fois et tous ceux qui nous ont honorés par leur présence et je vous souhaite une bonne continuation et bonne journée.
As we appreciate the organizers, we would like to especially thank the Ministry for Vocational Training and Employment of Tunisia and the Honorable Minister for hosting us. As he has said, this topic is very dear to his heart, and this has been shown by this gesture. What is the future of work? The world is changing. How is the world changing? How is work going to change? This will be the topic that guides our discussion throughout the next couple of days. To begin that discussion, I would like to invite Dr. Maud Mosted, Director of the Institute for Futures Research at Stellenbosch University, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning. It's a tremendous honor for me to be here, and I'm very pleased to be in Africa's most northern country, and I bring you greetings from Africa's most southern country, from South Africa. You can see that I'm trying to play for time as I'm waiting for my presentation to appear on the screen. Perhaps I should try and open it here on the screen in front of me. We had it at the back there. Let me do that anyway. Okay, we've got some help. As you heard, I'm the director of the Institute for Futures Research at the University of Stellenbosch, and we are the first and remain the only Institute for Futures Research on the African continent. And much of the work we do has to do with the study of the future of Africa. And I'll share with you the idea of exploring the future world of work to inform skills policy. The first observation to make is that the laptop is freezing. Gosh, they're really putting me through my paces here. There we are. Here is a picture from 100 years ago that tries to create an image of what education, the acquisition of skill, might look like in the year 2000. What's interesting about that is you'll notice that is not that far away from what Elon Musk thinks education is going to be like in the next few decades, where knowledge is simply downloaded into a mesh at the base of the brain. Unfortunately, our university hasn't reached this level yet, but we're moving our way there. A very important principle for us of trying to study the future is what we call this 20-30-50 principle. It's a very sensitive principle. It says that there's a weighting in the way that we think about time and the importance, the relative importance of time. So in our view, we say if we're trying to study the future, about 20% of that should be spent on studying the past. This is a contentious issue for those who find a lot of their power base from the past. 30% should be spent on studying what's going on, and a conference like this is very much examining exactly that. What is going on? And that requires some consensus, and it requires some humility. But our argument is that at least 50% of the investigation should be spent on what hasn't happened yet, and what is about to happen. We have a very simple view. The only place we could possibly go is the future. So how about we study that? Now, This is an important idea because it examines, firstly, what exactly are we looking for? And secondly, what is the level of skill that we aspire to? And how far away are we? Are we indeed looking in the right places? So, we are, of course, here in the exciting continent of Africa. You've heard the early speakers talk about what an amazing continent this is. And Africa has, and this is part of the study we do, an amazing intellectual history. Here's an example of Ptolemy in Alexandria, a research institute where luminaries such as Archimedes and Euclid studied, where Aristarchus of Samos studied. The enormous library, of course, that was there. That was not an exception. Of course, in Ethiopia and Eritrea, the erstwhile Axum, we have the history of the written language going back literally thousands of years, with inscriptions on coins being found 2,000 years ago. We have, of course, Augustine of Hippo, around 430 AD, who studied two things that you will hear about on CNN every day. One, rational beings possessing free will. Many psychologists would argue this is one of the greatest discoveries in the last 50 years. People can choose. Who knew? And secondly, just war theory. What is a just war? And if you look at CNN today, you'll see the work of Augustine of Hippo appearing on CNN almost every day. Well, of course, what about the history of universities? For many, Al-Qarawiyyin, an African university in Fez in Morocco, was the world's first university in 859. Of course, we know that Siddiqui College here in Tunisia was a forerunner of what would become many leading scholars on the African continent. It turns out that's not an aberration. About 100 years later, we had Al-Azhar University in Cairo. It would be another almost 1,000 years before Fora Bay College was established. And then, of course, we all know what happened around the 1850s. When Europeans came to Africa and chopped it up as if it is its own little pizza, with no regard of the natural flow of indigenous knowledge, or indigenous people, or indigenous creatures. Let's leap forward 2,000 years and look at how Africa is perceived by some in the more capitalist-oriented world. Here is the front cover of The Economist in May 2000 that refers to the continent as the hopeless continent. Let's leap forward about a year. And very rapidly now, Africa is rising. And this would turn out to be the vicissitudes of dialogue for the next 2 decades, as Africa rises and falls in the perceptions of those who wish to invest in her. Just a year later, Time magazine uses exactly the same title, and I'm sure The Economist had a thing or two to say about that. But in their view also, Africa was rising. A year after that, The Economist refers to Africa as aspiring. And we see this emergence of hope. 4 years after that, The Economist looks at making Africa work. A much more pragmatic view, asking questions not only about the sort of philosophical origins of the new Africa of the 1950s, but more pragmatically, how can we actually get things done? And most recently, in August of 2016, The Economist studies Africa's fragile democracies. But it seems to me, ladies and gentlemen, that a debate on the quality of the democracy is a much better debate than a debate on the extent to which the continent is hopeless just 10 years ago. So indeed, my suspicion is that we are at an opportune moment in the history, the story, the multi-millennial story of Africa, and we are investigating an important question in this conference, as we are all disrupted and excited by the technology to come. It was only recently that we realized the true size of Africa. And we realized just what an enormous part of the world, geographically, we live in. Of course, not everybody understands Africa well, and the Origin man in the United States recently referred to the ambassador who will be coming to Nambia, and thus illustrates a lot of the ignorance, of course, that still exists about our continent. He's not a man put off by ignorance, and of course referred to us in rather unflattering terms most recently. So Africa does have still a little bit of an image problem. For those scientists among you, the ones who like the numbers, there are the numbers. You've all heard of the demographic dividends. For those not familiar with it, it's the idea of the balance of those of working age as a percentage of those of ages between 0 and 15 and 64 plus. And as you can see, that's how Africa compares to the rest of the world. So you can see this base of young people. So as you study the future of Africa, something we do on a day-to-day basis for our clients, you can see that in the next few decades, Africa will have, as UNICEF has argued in one paper, by 2040, Africa will have 4 in every 10 of the world's young people. Just consider that for a moment. By 2040, 4 out of every 10 young people on the planet will be an African. So a rich market indeed, even if you look at it from a capitalist perspective. There's the number in a graph, and you can see how far that demographic dividend extends. For sub-Saharan Africa there, that dividend extends to around 2060, almost mid-2060s, which means for the next few decades, sub-Saharan Africa at least has this amazing opportunity to benefit from this demographic dividend. There are some statistics that shows the status quo, if that's an important dimension. And you can see that sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa, this is from the Global Competitiveness Index, is not quite, at least in the view of the rest of the world, where we could be. So the question is, if Africa does have skill, is that skill useful? You'll be surprised to know that just in the last few years, 314 active tech hubs have been created on the continent in 93 cities in 42 countries. I think this is a staggering finding. What that means is all over the continent, more and more young people are concerning themselves with creating their own destiny. I find this enormously exciting as an emerging trend. So perhaps while we are at this conference debating what it's all about, they are already doing it. Of course, organizations find themselves within this context with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, Agenda 2063 of the AU, and of course, this global trend for national development plans to illustrate what the long-term future of the country might be. And I think this is an enormously exciting time to be a business because the context is just so rich. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, our interest is in the study of the future, of a time yet to come. It's a curious thing because decisions are always made in the present. Even if you make that decision tomorrow, it will be the present then. Decisions, unfortunately, are almost always made based on the past. The real conundrum is that decisions can only be made for the future. This is a curious idea. Made in the present, based on the past, made for the future. It is for that reason that we argue that those who know where they come from also know where they've been. Now, we get a lot of observation that this is a misquote, and it should in fact read, of course, that those who know where they come from also know where they're going. We've seen very little scientific evidence of that theory, because it would suggest that the best futurists in the world are, of course, historians. And there's almost no evidence that historians are among the most innovative technologists on the continent. We work in the area of strategic competitiveness, both for governments and for business. And a key important strategic question for us is, how is the world asymmetrically structured in favor of Africa? How is the world asymmetrically structured in favor of Africa? Why that is an important question is because that means that our view, strategically speaking, is that Africa shouldn't try to catch up. You only try to be prepared for the future if you are not creating that future. Now, we've already seen that Africa has an immensely rich intellectual history. We have also seen that all across the continent, young people are creating already the technology that Africa will need. So how is Africa asymmetrically favored by the current global dispensation? Well, its demographic dividend is one of those opportunities, and its enormous potential for innovation is yet another. But Africa, of course, must create a confidence triad that gives confidence, firstly, to government, in which policy certainty must feature, and certainly for our business clients, this is an important dimension for studying the future. How certain is that policy? Or are we just going where the political winds are blowing us? That policy certainty gives rise to investment, and that investment gives rise to citizen confidence, which demonstrates itself in terms of healthy consumers and in terms of civil participation. So this triad of confidence is essential for the future of Africa, and governments and policy certainly have a key role to play there. I would be remiss with my Deputy Minister of Higher Education here if I didn't point out that in the South African Constitution is ensconced in Section 16, academic freedom and freedom of scientific research. Put up your hand if your Constitution protects academic freedom. I just thought I'd show off there for a little bit. But what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is as new democracies in Africa are being created, so we are beginning to respect the value of academic research and the power that that can have on the future of Africa. So, as with all thinkers and students of paradigms and future opportunities, we try to model the opportunity. So if we look at the three variables there, if we look at what we call the ACE of base in space model for Africa, the first question is, what's the base? What's the base? How high are we on that base? What's the current starter level for Africa? And of course, there's enormous discrepancy, and some would say the base isn't very high. What about the pace? How quickly are we moving? Because future success will depend not only on the base. In that sense, Western Europe and North America are far ahead of us. It is the pace, really, that will determine whether we are competitive. And then, how about the space? Are we creating the space for young people and for business to help us to move the way forward? And our view is that even though the base score on Africa is generally quite low, the pace score is much higher. We heard the representative from the Tunisian government explain the enormous growth rates that we find in certain African countries. We now need to create the space in which young people can help us to see the way. In other words, colleagues, I'm submitting to you, among other things, that not only is it the role in our conference to show the way, but also how can we create the space in which younger people may help us to see that way. So our view, as perhaps you were hearing, is that Africa cannot wait for time to tell. Africa must tell time. We will realize very shortly that skills that young people are developing have exceeded even our own education, and it is perhaps time for young people to show the way. You've been a lovely audience. Enjoy your conference. It's been my honor. Thank you very much.
So, sorry for the break. Thank you very much, Dr. Mustet. We will probably go for a tea break right now and then come back later to discuss all of this in details.